All right, I see that 9 of you guys are here. We're talking about the Las Vegas race for the Xfinity Series and stuff like that. Probably not going to be here too long. I can't imagine I have much to go over. It's 1.5 for Xfinity. Let's go ahead and bring everything up here and make sure I'm talking, which we are. All right, going to go there. All right, let me bring up all this nonsense, all this gobbledygook. So, when we're just looking at practice really fast, now granted, I hate the two different practice groups and whatever, but specifically the two people that we want to look at are Zilich and Allgaier. Just from a head-to-head perspective here, these guys are obviously the two fastest guys. I mean, we could have, other contenders for this race could be Sam Mayer, who has to drive through the field, starting in the teens and stuff. Eric Almirola, but I firmly believe that it's Connor or Justin Allgaier today. And so when we're specifically looking at these guys as laps, you're seeing that, and yet again, this could be traffic dependent. This could just be where they're running and stuff, but they're pretty even. The early advantage is going to Justin Allgaier, but we clearly see that Connor runs 8 laps in pits, and then Justin Allgaier runs 10 laps. Actually, yeah, he runs 10 laps in pits, and then they both come out after making adjustments and stuff. And we see that Connor Zilich is just slightly faster than Allgaier. But I'm going to lean probably more towards Connor Zilich today over Allgaier, but I will be playing both of them. I don't believe we can play both of them together, but I do like both of these guys here. It's honestly a coin flip. Now, normally the pricing constraints are much more tough to deal with, but with Justin being 11.5 and Connor being 12.5, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, you're playing just one or the other. Let me see. Let me take this off really fast. I want to see what my stuff is showing. I put it together, but I want to see what my stuff is leaning towards more. So it's leaning towards Connor Zilich over Justin Allgaier today. But because I'm going to manually build, I'm probably going to have lineups that or at least cores that I like that I'm playing with Connor Zilich, and then I'll probably just do a 2v2 and insert Justin Allgaier instead of Connor Zilich in lineups today. I do want to say that we do have, at least for me, I mean, this is Vegas. This is an intermediate track. We've seen cheaper guys, perform well here, especially in these Xfinity races that tend to go green. If we don't have anything crazy, especially, I mean, this is a long race, 201 laps for an Xfinity Series race. That's pretty long for these guys. Austin Green starting 33rd, 6,200. I much more prefer, and I'm very tempted to go like 65, 70% on Brennan Poole at 57. I mean, it's Poole, $5,700 starting 31st. I think he's the best play in the slate. But I think Austin Green is very much in play. Obviously, Trevor Bayne at 74. We have a lot of people who can realistically hit a 5x today, and that makes it fairly easy to get to Connor Zilich and Allgaier. Because if we're playing these guys, as I said, we might consider Eric Almirola as somebody who could potentially win, but I'm probably not playing Jones. I'm probably not playing Sanchez. I'm not playing Love. Not playing Eckes. Probably not playing Taylor at 87. That's a bit expensive for him, for where he's starting with what he's competing against. He's going to have, I mean, anybody who leads this race who isn't Allgaier and Connor Zilich is going to have to just flat out outrun those two guys. I don't really see that from anybody here from 12th to 3rd. But Hemrick at 75, Ryan Sieg at 82, Sammy Smith at 9,000. Same thing with Sam Mayer. I mean, these guys, you need 45, or you need 45 and 50 points from these guys. But Benedetto 66, Day at 7,000, Corey Day at 76, Harrison Burton 72. I mean, I am probably going to be using a lot of the 7K range today because I think those guys just make the most sense naturally from a point per dollar perspective and a projection, even before we get to the fact of having to pay up for Connor Zilich or Justin Allgaier. But Bayne at 74, Day at 76. as I said, Hemrick 75, Ryan Sieg 82, and then like I said, I'm going to be heavily using Brennan Poole at 5,700. I'm going to be using Austin Green at 6,200. We really don't need to do a lot of crazy things on this slate. It's really just going to come down to who's going to perform better between Allgaier and Connor Zilic. I'm going to give it to Connor, but I think between let me see how many spots are left in these contests. By the way, let's see. I might throw like 30 or 40 in the 10. And what I'm going to do is probably have one or the other of Connor Zilic or Allgaier in all of my lineups. So if I end up with 60% Connor Zilic, I'm gonna have 40% Allgaier and stuff like that. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. For what it's worth, for UFC, I believe this guy probably just lost. No, we're still going. I did have played 150 lines, and I have like 49 with this fellow here, and that 112 is going to be really difficult to push out the optimal. So I'm probably going to play this NASCAR slate fairly aggressive because I think I'm going to get at least my entry fee back for the UFC card, if not more, hopefully. Which actually, going back, played the optimal last week. Played the optimal at the start of not last month. At the end, whatever. What month is it? October, September. At the end of August. Between like these 4 or 5 slates, I played the optimal in 2 of them. So that's a pretty insane hit rate so far. Now that I'm able to really play the UFC the way I like it. So with that said, I'm probably going to do 40 lineups in the Xfinity Series 1, and it's going to be just one or the other of Allgaier and stuff. And past that is just going to be whatever my stuff is showing. I don't see any comments or any questions or anything at the moment. I do want to go through and kind of see what what we're looking at here in the top 1,000 lineups for my stuff. Yet again, we don't have ownership from or anything from SaberSim. Obviously, my stuff is up there, but we don't have anything from SaberSim, so I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my own pants here and seeing where everything's going. But I want to see where these guys are at here. As stated, I like Poole. Let's see what the exposure of these guys are. So my stuff's leaning slightly to Connor at 64. I don't really see anything too crazy here. I am. I think I do want to at least be at like 25% Allgaier because I think he does have a pretty high likelihood of at least competing and possibly taking over this race from Connor. I mean, it should be these two guys 1 and 2 all day. I will say I might be over projecting Sam Mayer today. I just like how the Haas cars and specifically Mayer has been running this year. Starting where is this guy at? He's starting 16th. Okay, I think if Allgaier and Connor aren't the race winners, I do think Sam Mayer is probably the next in line to do stuff. Now, yet again, I can't bet here in Texas, and I don't know, how good of his odds are now. I'm not going to really look. That's not for you to decide if you're in one of those states. But if you can find good odds on Sam Mayer, I would probably put money on him to win the race from like a bet perspective because I do think he's very live. If Allgaier and Zilic fumble, I think he's probably the next in line. I don't know if I'm going to be where this exposure, and obviously this is just my top 1,000 lineups in terms of projections. I like to just see where my guys are. Typically, this gives me a lot of ugly lineups that I don't end up playing because it has like punts or whatever. But I think Sam Mayer is very much in contention here. You're noticing that when we look at the projections here, yet again, 7K guys are very close to. Actually, we don't even have that many 7K guys. Though we had. I'm looking at the wrong thing here. We look here and we see all the 7K guys. I'm not playing William Sawalish, but Eckes is 4-5. Days at 30. Hemrick's at 32. Like I really like this range here. I don't feel like I overprojected them either, because if any of these guys hit like 5, if I have them for 5 in the projections, it'll just throw them in automatically. I mean, we already see 37% Trevor Bay in the top 1,000, but I really like Corey Day. I'm just taking. I mean, the kid is terrible, but um, that car on an intermediate track for 7,600. I mean, from how fast that car should be, I think that's a pretty decent discount here. But that's kind of where I'm looking today. I wouldn't play Ryan Ellis. Obviously, he blew the motor. He changed it. I've really no interest in playing him today. I'm a little concerned about Parker Retzlaff as well. Let's look at him really fast. Yeah, I don't think so. This is where, I mean, obviously it's concerning with Poole, but typically he's always here in practice speeds and stuff. But the average speeds for a lot of these guys here is usually a good indicator of where they're actually going to be in terms of the race. Like these aren't fast cars. They're not guys who are going to be faster in one group or the other, or they're going to start off really fast. I mean, these guys are pretty much where they're at. Uh, so my punt plays is like I really don't want to be punting much today with this field. Like I'm probably not playing Ellis. I'm probably not playing Retzloff. I'm not playing Sammy. I'm not playing Smithley, Mason, maybe Nick, maybe Green. Not playing Gaze. Not playing Massey. Not playing Thomas. And even still with Josh Williams and Blaine, even Alfredo to an extent, I'm kind of concerned about them. So it's really just like Green, Poole, and Nick Lights. If I need the 4,900, which I don't think I need today, I'd rather just play a lot of people in the mid range because it's very easy to with at least how I'm looking at this race. I have no clue what the optimal was at last week or last year. We can kind of at least get a idea. We can. I don't, I've migrated away from like looking at past optimals, and I don't know. I've kind of migrated away from that. We can usually get an idea just by looking at where people finish, obviously the lap split or whatever. So we're gonna assume that Allgaier was there, possibly Eric, maybe not necessarily, but once we go from there, Ryan Sieg would have been optimal. Kyle Sieg would have been optimal. I mean, at that point, we can kind of guesstimate where they were at, but it's usually your race winner, i.e., or the guy who led the most laps, your biggest place differential mover, and or someone who could pay off his price tag. So it's probably, Allgaier, Ryan Sieg, potentially Jones, and probably Kyle Sieg, and then everything after that is just kind of wherever people have ended up at. This was the one in the, this is the spring race, which is, I mean, we're already here. Let's go and look at these races at Vegas really fast. But unlike other tracks, if I'm not mistaken, it could just be an absolute baboon. We're going to look at the last 4 here. Hunter and Green to the end. Well, a lot of crashes here, but we do get a 67 lap or 69 lap run to the end here. And then a super long run to the end at the spring race last year. And so 2 of the 3 last races have had a super long run to the end. I would expect no different from that. So when we're looking at people left on lead lap, 13. Obviously we had Rex here, but 24. Race earlier this year. 9 people on the lead lap. That's kind of why I really don't want a lot of people who are not going to be on the lead lap today. I mean, duh, obviously, but like obviously can kind of be concerned about Hemrick here, but what leans or what traits do people have if they're going to be on the lead lap? They're with Junior Motorsports or Joe Gibbs Racing or Hendrick Car. So who's going to compete for that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 with Burton. I mean, that should be your core. Like between those 18 drivers, I didn't include DeBenedetto, I didn't include um, Hemrick. Between those 18 drivers, I probably want I want to try and get 5 of those guys that I meant that we just mentioned there, right? That's the pool of drivers that you want to use, people who can stay on the lead lap, okay? Just on a baseline. And then secondly, how do we get that pool lower? We then look at projections. We then look at who has the likelihood of actually performing well for DFS. That's how you remove people like Brandon Jones. That's how you remove people like Jesse Levitt, 92, Eckes, maybe Carson Quapple, like that. That's where you kind of limit that. We go from 18 drivers to 14 to 12 or whatever, right? What are we left with? A lot of the guys in the 8 and 7K range starting inside the top 18. So that's what I'm going to do today. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say past that. I don't really think there's a reason for me to stick around or say anything other than that. So yeah, see you guys tomorrow. That's about all I got. Bye bye.